Jack Morgan wiped sweat from his brow as he stared at the holographic display. The small testing chamber hummed with energy, casting blue light across his tired face. Behind the reinforced glass, a model ship the size of his palm floated in zero gravity. "Ready for Test 37, he said to the nearly empty room. Only 3 other people were present in the massive chamber designed for 50 engineers. Tom nodded from the system's console, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Lisa adjusted the sensor array, her red hair tied back in a practical ponytail. Ben, the youngest team member, monitored the power levels with anxious eyes. Ghost Project, Test 37, Jack continued for the record. Testing modified absorption matrix. Once, the Ghost Project had been the pride of Earth's military research division, a revolutionary stealth warship that could change the course of the war against the Drift Empire. Now, it was just another forgotten initiative, buried under budget cuts and flashier weapon systems that promised quicker results. Beginning scan sequence, Lisa announced. The array of sensors around the chamber activated, sending invisible detection waves toward the tiny model. Tom leaned forward. Previous tests showed 78% reduction in sensor visibility. Let's see if the new absorption layer makes any difference. Jack held his breath. For 3 years, they had worked on this project, even as their funding dwindled and their team members were reassigned. Most military brass had written off stealth technology as impractical. Modern sensors were too advanced, they said. Nothing could truly hide in space. Jack disagreed. The standard approach to stealth involved deflecting or scrambling sensor signals. But what if, instead, a ship could absorb those signals completely? Like a black hole for detection waves. The sensor array hummed louder. Something's wrong with the readout, Lisa frowned, tapping her screen. I'm not getting any return signal. Power surge? Asked Ben, checking his monitors. No, Tom replied, his voice rising with excitement. Power levels are stable. The model is just gone from the sensors. Jack stepped closer to the glass. The tiny ship was still there, floating peacefully. But according to every detection system in the room, it had vanished completely. Run it again, he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Lisa reset the scanners and ran another sweep. Nothing. It works, Jack whispered. It actually works. The team spent the next several hours running tests with every sensor type available. Radar, LiDAR, thermal, gravitational, electromagnetic, nothing could detect the small model ship unless it was visually observed. We need to report this immediately, Lisa said, already preparing the data for transmission to military command. 3 days later, General Webb's response arrived. Jack read it aloud to the team. While the Ghost Project's latest results show promise, they appear inconsistent with established detection principles. Further, mass application of this technology remains impractical given resource constraints. The committee has decided to reallocate remaining Ghost Project resources to the Thunder-class battleship initiative. Your team is hereby reduced to maintenance status pending reassignment. The silence in the room was deafening. Maintenance status? Tom finally exploded. We've just created the perfect stealth system, and they're shutting us down. They don't believe it, Ben said quietly. Or they don't understand it. Jack set down the message and looked at each team member. What if we continue anyway? Lisa raised an eyebrow. Without authorization? Without funding? With minimal official oversight, Jack corrected. Look, they've forgotten about us. That gives us freedom. We can requisition obsolete parts, use testing facilities during off hours. We've come too far to stop now. The wall screen suddenly flickered to life with breaking news. The Drift Empire had seized 3 more colony worlds in the Tau Ceti system. Footage showed massive drift warships overwhelming Earth's defenses, their shield technology rendering conventional weapons nearly useless. 40,000 colonists, Ben whispered, reading the casualty estimates. Jack gestured toward the tiny model ship, still floating in the test chamber. It looked unimpressive, just a small, plain vessel with none of the aggressive lines or intimidating weapon mounts of typical military craft. "They won't see us coming," he said softly. And that's exactly the point. The team exchanged glances, and one by one, they nodded. The Ghost project wasn't dead. It was just getting started. 3 years passed like a whisper in the abandoned Section 12 of the Mars shipyard. The massive space, once meant for constructing dreadnoughts, had been officially listed as decommissioned due to structural concerns. In reality, it had become the secret home of the Ghost project. Jack ducked under a hanging cable as he made his way across the improvised construction bay. What had once been a theoretical model was now taking physical form, a ship unlike any other in Earth's fleet. "Power coupling is stabilized," called Maria from her position near the engine core. The former weapons specialist had joined their team 18 months ago, after her official project had been scrapped. Like many brilliant minds in the military, she'd found herself sidelined by bureaucracy. Tom emerged from beneath the hull, his face streaked with grease. "Outer absorption layer is at 98% coverage. We're actually going to finish this thing." The ship before them wasn't particularly impressive to look at. Smaller than a standard cruiser, with clean lines and minimal external features, it resembled a smooth river stone more than a warship. But appearances were deceiving. "Dan's got the AI navigation system running final simulations," Lisa reported, scrolling through data on her tablet. "It's already learning to predict standard patrol patterns." Dan, their newest recruit and AI specialist, had created a navigation system that didn't just follow commands, it learned, adapted, and anticipated. Perfect for a ship designed to remain undetected. Ben approached with a hover cart loaded with components. "You won't believe what I found in the disposal unit from the Thunder project. Brand new tactical systems, listed as defective but perfectly functional." Jack smiled. For years, they had scavenged, repurposed, and reimagined. What couldn't be requisitioned was built from scratch. What couldn't be built was improvised. The military's wasteful practices had become their greatest resource. "What in Star's name is going on here?" The voice cut through the busy work noises like a laser. The team froze as Commander Ray Phillips strode into the bay, his uniform immaculate, his expression unreadable. Jack stepped forward. "Commander, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been running an unauthorized project for 3 years. How you've diverted resources. How you've built an entire ship off the books." Ray's eyes swept across the vessel, taking in every detail. "Yes, sir," Jack replied simply. Ray's stern expression held for another moment before breaking into something unexpected: respect. "My brother was on New Eden when the drift took it," he said quietly. "Show me what you've built." Over the next hour, the team guided Ray through their creation. The commander asked pointed questions, probing for weaknesses, challenging assumptions. His military experience provided perspectives they hadn't considered. "Your absorption technology is remarkable," Ray admitted when the tour ended. "But your weapons systems are still conventional. The drift shields will render them ineffective." Maria stepped forward. "Not quite, sir. We've been working on something." She led them to a sealed compartment where a prototype weapon was mounted. Standard weapons hit drift shields with brute force. But we studied the energy frequencies their shields operate on. This system targets those specific frequencies, disrupting the shield matrix itself. Ray stared at the weapon, then at the ship, then at the determined faces of the team. "You know I should report this immediately," he said finally. "Yes, sir," Jack replied. Ray was silent for a long moment. Instead, I'm going to help you. From now on, this is a waste recycling initiative under my direct supervision. That will give you access to better resources. 2 months later, the ship, now christened Phantom, was ready for its first complete test flight. Jack sat at the pilot console, with Tom beside him as navigator. All systems green, Lisa reported from the weapons station. Stealth matrix active. Launch in 3, 2, 1. Jack engaged the engines. Phantom slipped out of the shipyard like a ghost, completely invisible to every tracking system in the solar system. For 4 hours, they tested every capability, slipping past patrols, approaching stations undetected, and even briefly shadowing a military cruiser that never knew they were there. When they returned to the hidden bay, Commander Ray was waiting with a rare smile. "It works," he said simply. "And none too soon. The Drift have launched an attack on Jupiter's moons." The Jupiter Defense Fleet was in shambles. 3 days into the Drift attack, and half of humanity's outer system defenses lay in ruins. The massive alien ships had appeared without warning, their purple-tinged shields deflecting everything Earth forces threw at them. In the Emergency Command Center on Mars, Commander Ray stood before the High Council, his expression grim but determined. "We need intelligence on their fleet positions," General Webb stated, studying the tactical display. "But every scout ship we've sent has been destroyed before returning." "I have a solution," Ray said. "A reconnaissance vessel with unique capabilities." Hours later, Jack and Tom sat in Phantom's cockpit, running final checks. Lisa's hologram appeared at the weapons station. She would operate remotely from Mars. "This is reconnaissance only," Ray reminded them through the comm. "Get in, map their positions, get out. Do not engage." "Understood," Jack replied, knowing full well that orders rarely survived contact with reality. Phantom slipped past Earth's defense perimeter unnoticed, then past the Drift blockade with equal ease. Their stealth system worked perfectly, not a single alarm was triggered as they navigated through the heart of the enemy fleet. Recording all ship positions and classifications, Tom whispered, though there was no need for silence in space. "Their fleet is even larger than intelligence estimated." Jack guided Phantom closer to a massive Drift command ship. Their sensors recorded details that no human had ever seen before: weapon emplacements, engine configurations, communication arrays. Then they saw it, a civilian transport under attack by a Drift patrol ship. The unarmed vessel had clearly been trying to evacuate from Ganymede when it was caught. "We have to help them," Tom said, watching as the transport's engines failed. "Orders are to observe only," Lisa reminded them from Mars. Jack's hands tightened on the controls. "If we don't act, those people die. If we do, we risk exposing Phantom." The Drift ship fired again, tearing through the transport's hull. "Weapons ready," Lisa said, making her decision. Jack nodded. "Targeting their main power core." Phantom's experimental weapons fired, sending focused energy pulses that bypassed the Drift shields completely. The enemy ship exploded without ever detecting what had hit it. "Let's get that transport to safety, then complete our mission," Jack ordered. They returned to Mars with the damaged transport in tow, along with detailed intelligence on the entire Drift fleet. The information immediately turned the tide of battle, allowing Earth forces to target vulnerabilities they never knew existed. In the debriefing room, General Webb studied the data with growing respect. "Your reconnaissance was invaluable," he told Jack's team. "Phantom will continue these observation missions." "Nothing more." Jack exchanged glances with his crew. They all knew that Phantom was meant for more than just watching. The Drift Empire struck Mars without warning. 50 warships appeared in orbit, their purple shields glimmering against the red planet's atmosphere. Earth's main defense fleet had been drawn away by simultaneous attacks on the Moon and orbital stations, a clever diversion that left Mars vulnerable. "They're targeting the shipyards," Commander Ray reported, watching the tactical display with growing dread. If they destroy our production facilities, we lose the war. The remaining ships defending Mars were overwhelmed, falling one by one to the superior drift firepower. Emergency messages flooded in from the surface as the first bombardment began. Jack paced in Phantom's ready room. "We can't just watch this happen. Orders are to remain hidden," Lisa reminded him, though her expression showed she agreed with Jack. Tom looked up from his console. "The drift don't know Phantom exists. That's our advantage." Jack turned to the communication screen where Commander Ray's face showed the strain of watching his world under attack. "Commander, request permission to join the defense." Ray hesitated only briefly. "Permission granted. But remember, your greatest weapon is that they don't see you coming." Phantom launched silently from its hidden bay, slipping into the battle undetected. Jack guided the ship through the chaos of combat, positioning them behind a drift destroyer that was hammering a human defense platform. "Targeting their engine core," Lisa said, hands steady on the weapons console. The experimental weapons fired, sending precisely calibrated energy bursts through the drift shield. The destroyer's engines detonated, the explosion cascading through the ship until it broke apart. No one in the battle noticed the source of the destroyer's destruction. Both human and drift commanders assumed it was some kind of catastrophic malfunction. Phantom moved to its next target, then another. 3 drift destroyers fell in quick succession, each appearing to suffer mysterious system failures. The remaining drift ships began to pull back, their formation suddenly uncertain. Intercepted communications revealed confusion among their commanders. "Something is wrong," transmitted a drift captain. "Ships are failing without being hit. Scan for invisible attackers." But their scans found nothing. Phantom was a ghost among them, striking and vanishing before they could respond. As the drift fleet retreated from Mars orbit, the human defense forces rallied, pressing their unexpected advantage. In the aftermath, military intelligence analyzed the battle recordings. 3 drift destroyers destroyed by unknown causes, reported an analyst to the High Command. Their communications mention an invisible attacker. General Webb frowned. Could this be related to the Ghost Project? Across the room, Commander Ray kept his expression neutral. On a distant drift command ship, the Emperor received the battle report with cold fury. "Find this invisible ship," he ordered. "Whatever cannot be seen must be destroyed." "They're looking for us now," Tom said, studying the intelligence reports. The drift had deployed their elite hunter fleet, 20 specialized vessels equipped with advanced detection technology. In the weeks since the Mars battle, Earth military had begun implementing parts of Phantom's technology across the fleet. New absorption coatings reduced ship signatures by 40%, impressive, but nowhere near Phantom's complete invisibility. "We need to stay ahead," Jack told his expanded team. Maria and Dan had created a new heat dispersal system that would mask even the faintest energy traces. "The moment they can track us, we lose our advantage." Commander Ray entered with new orders. "High Command wants you to strike a drift fuel processing station near Neptune. Intelligence suggests minimal defenses." The mission began smoothly. Phantom slipped through space undetected, approaching the massive station where drift ships refueled for their attacks on human worlds. "Something's wrong," Lisa said suddenly, as warning lights flashed across her console. "We're getting active scanning on frequencies we've never seen before." They've adapted, Jack realized. Evasive maneuvers. A drift hunter ship decloaked directly ahead, its sensors sweeping space in a new pattern. For a brief moment, it locked onto Phantom's position. "They've got a partial fix on us," Tom reported, fingers flying across the navigation controls. Lisa fired the main weapons, striking the hunter before it could fully target them. The drift ship's shields buckled under the specialized energy burst, but not before it transmitted their location. More hunters converging, Dan warned from the AI station. 3 minutes to intercept. Phantom took damage in the ensuing battle, a glancing hit that damaged part of their stealth matrix. Jack pushed the engines beyond safety limits, finally breaking away from the hunters and limping toward an abandoned human colony. They landed on a forgotten outpost on Triton, Neptune's largest moon. While the team worked frantically on repairs, Ben discovered an encrypted data terminal still operational in the colony's ruins. "You need to see this," he called to Jack, displaying the decrypted files. "The Drift aren't just conquering colonies, they're building something." The schematics showed a massive weapon platform being constructed in Drift territory, a planet killer capable of destroying Earth itself. "We have to warn Earth," Jack said, transmitting the critical intelligence on an emergency channel. Unknown to them, a Drift hunter ship picked up the transmission, pinpointing their location. Earth's response to the superweapon intelligence was immediate. Cities began evacuation procedures, orbital defenses were doubled, and every available ship was recalled to defend humanity's homeworld. All vessels returned to Earth defense positions, came the order from High Command. Including Phantom. But Phantom had problems of its own. 3 Drift hunter ships had surrounded their position on Triton, their new scanning technology probing the moon's surface. "Stealth systems at 60%, Lisa reported. "If we launch, they'll detect us." Jack studied the tactical display. "If we return to Earth, we lead them straight to our defenses." "So we don't return to Earth," Tom said quietly. The crew exchanged glances, understanding forming between them. "The superweapon," Jack nodded. "If Earth focuses on defense while we strike at the source." "That's a one-way mission," Commander Ray warned over their secure channel, his hologram flickering with interference. "The Drift will throw everything at you." "Better us than Earth," Jack replied. They worked through the night, repairing what they could of Phantom's damaged systems. By dawn, they had a plan, risky, desperate, but their only option. Phantom launched with minimal power, using Triton's gravity to slingshot away from the hunters. When the Drift ships gave chase, Jack activated a series of decoys they'd prepared, splitting the hunters' attention. "Setting course through the Kuiper Belt," Tom announced. "We can use the debris fields for cover." For days, they traveled deeper into the outer solar system, then beyond, following the coordinates extracted from the colony data. The Drift superweapon was being constructed near their home system, a fact unknown to human intelligence until now. "Power conservation at maximum," Dan reported. "Running on essential systems only." They caught their first glimpse of the weapon when they passed the edge of a gas giant in Drift territory. The massive structure dwarfed even the largest battleships, its central cannon already taking shape. "Scan complete," Lisa whispered. "Its power source is shielded, but the cooling system is exposed on the lower quadrant." A vast Drift armada protected the superweapon, 50 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels. Against such forces, Phantom was just one small ship. Jack looked at his crew, seeing determination in their eyes despite the impossible odds. "We never needed to be the biggest," he said. "We just needed to be the one they couldn't see coming." The time for hiding was over. Now, Phantom would become truly unstoppable. Phantom drifted silently toward the Drift superweapon, running on minimal power. The vast structure loomed ahead, its central cannon aimed directly at Earth's solar system. Around it, Drift warships patrolled in precise formations, their sensors sweeping space continuously. Approaching optimal firing position, Tom whispered, though there was no need for silence in the vacuum of space. Old habits died hard when tension ran high. Jack studied the tactical display. Their cooling system enters a purge cycle every 40 minutes. "We'll have a 3-second window where the protective shields drop." "That's not much time," Lisa said from weapons control, her fingers hovering over the firing sequence. "It's all we need," Jack replied. Phantom slipped between two drift cruisers, invisible to their conventional sensors. The specialized hunter ships were elsewhere in the fleet, their new detection technology not yet widely distributed. 30 seconds to cooling purge, Dan announced, monitoring the superweapons systems. Jack positioned Phantom directly beneath the exposed cooling array. One shot. One chance to save Earth. Weapon charged, Lisa confirmed. Ready to fire on your mark. 10 seconds, Dan counted down. 5, 4, 3. A proximity alarm suddenly blared through the ship. A drift hunter had entered the sector, its advanced sensors immediately picking up Phantom's faint energy signature. We've been detected. Tom warned. 2 seconds to purge, Dan continued, voice steady despite the danger. Fire. Jack ordered. Phantom's weapons discharged, sending a concentrated energy burst directly into the superweapons cooling system. At the same moment, the drift hunter opened fire, scoring a hit on Phantom's engines. The effect was instantaneous. The superweapons cooling system collapsed, triggering cascading failures throughout its massive structure. Warning signals flashed across Phantom's damaged bridge as the ship spun from the impact. Direct hit, Lisa confirmed. Their weapon is destabilizing. Engine core breach, Tom reported. We can't sustain flight. The superweapon began to break apart, massive explosions rippling along its frame. The drift fleet fell into chaos, ships colliding as they tried to escape the growing destruction. There's our window, Jack said, diverting emergency power to what remained of their engines. Phantom limped away from the exploding superweapon, using the chaos and debris as cover. Behind them, the drift's ultimate weapon detonated completely, taking their main base and half their fleet with it. 3 weeks later, a heavily damaged but still functioning Phantom emerged from hyperspace near Earth. The crew, exhausted but alive, were greeted as heroes. In the aftermath, as humanity launched a successful counteroffensive against the now disorganized drift forces, military command finally understood the full potential of what Jack and his team had created. We're building an entire fleet based on your design, General Webb told Jack, standing before the scarred but proud Phantom. The Ghost Fleet. Jack looked at his crew, friends who had believed when no one else would. Not bad for a project no one noticed, he said with a smile.